But once I put this into my like routine for warming up, maintaining my knee, it like made a huge difference. Probably the biggest difference makers in strengthening my knee. And eventually you work up to where it can be your body weight, then maybe it's the bar, then you put weight on the bar, and it keeps going up from there. Hey, what's up guys? I'm TJ. I'm a NASM certified personal trainer, and today I wanted to go over the 3-step method to having better knees. And I wanted to do this because at one point I had pretty bad jumper's knee from playing volleyball, and I had to do a lot of work and research to try and figure out the best way to get my knees to not hurt after playing. Because for a while it was pretty obnoxious and really annoying because I would get home, my knees would hurt, I could never really bend them. Regardless of how much I was able to like squat in the gym, doing like any leg exercises, I wouldn't be able to even do like half range of motion on a squat or anything. So I did some digging, was able to put together this kind of plan for me to get my knees to a good spot in my life. And you can kind of take these steps and kind of apply it to almost any joint. You won't have to just try and figure out certain things on your own. But if you have the 3 main ideas, you could probably get there. This is step 1 is mobility. Making sure your knee is able to move in a full range of motion just in general without even necessarily having to bear any weight is pretty important. Also being able to be comfortable in that full range of motion. Now, one way of doing this to start off is foam rolling. Now, I kind of ignored foam rolling in the beginning, but once I put this into my like routine for warming up, maintaining my knee, it like made a huge difference. Mainly doing the inner and outer of my thigh, as well as doing some of my quad. You can do some of the other muscles like your calves and your hamstrings, but I haven't found those to be as necessary as doing these 3 muscles right here. And the main reason this is able to help is it's able to kind of like massage and kind of relax the muscle, where some of them might be a little bit tight and unable to act properly. And by massaging and rolling out the muscles, you're able to kind of let them work in a way that your knee will like. And then stretching is kind of building on that idea of moving in a greater range of motion, because if you're able to stretch and you're able to move your joint in a greater range of motion just normally, you'll probably be able to reduce injury and pain. So imagine you have someone who is really tight and they can only really squat halfway down before not even really pain starts to feel, but they feel tight in their quad, their hamstrings, their glutes. They feel tight somewhere in their lower half, and they have to go back up because they just physically can't go any lower. That person's more likely to probably get injuries or have pain associated with their lower half, because any small movement where they get too far out of their range of their body or their muscles are comfortable with is more likely something to happen. But if someone's able to get a full ass to grass squat with no like mobility limitations, now if their knee hurts, that's a different story, because that means they are able to move in that range, but they don't have the strength to move in that range, which leads us into the next point: strengthening those same muscles that you're stretching. But the important thing here is that you probably don't want to be moving your knee in a strenuous range of motion. So doing squats or anything like that might put a lot of strain on your quads. So what do you do instead? Well, you try and find like other ways to strengthen them. But in terms of the other muscles, that will help give your knee a little bit more stability and strength all around. There's a concept called regional interdependence, where your muscles are, since your muscles are all connected, they're all kind of reliant on each other in some way, where sometimes an impairment in one can kind of lead to problems in the other. So not necessarily related to the knee, but more of a squat example is if someone has trouble having a deep squat, or they're bending their back too much, they're breaking at their hips too much, there's something going on, they're going up on their toes, you go, oh, okay, they might have like a problem with mobility in their ankles. And when you put some weight under their ankles or some kind of way to elevate their ankles a little bit, or their heels rather, you find that they're able to squat almost basically perfectly. So while it may seem like there's a problem with their hips and they need to figure out how to keep their body a little more upright while squatting, the real problem is that their ankles are so immobile that it's keeping them from getting that deep squat, or will cause them to be hurt if they try and do a deep squat. So stretching the calf muscles would be what you'd be trying to look for there, rather than trying to figure out how to make the hip or any of the hip muscles a little more mobile, more stable, etc. And the same thing can be thought of the knee, is that the knee isn't just kind of dependent on the muscles directly connected to it. It's kind of dependent on everything around it, even the muscles may be connected to that. So strengthening your glutes helps stabilization, hamstrings and calves for more strength. And then 2 major ones that I've found to be probably the biggest difference makers in strengthening my knee is the tibialis and the hip flexors. Now, the tibialis and hip flexors are not normally exercised like almost at all, but they're both very easy to do. Depending on your gym equipment, if you have a exercise band, you could always wrap it around something and kind of hang it off the top of your foot and kind of let it pull it back and forth and kind of get a good workout that way. Another way you could do it is you can kind of lean against the wall and kind of pick your toes up and let them slowly fall down, and do that for an amount of reps. Similar thing for the hip flexors. You can kind of, some places might have a machine that could work out your hip flexors, or you could maybe mess with the cables a little bit. If they have like an ankle or cuff attachment for the cable machines at your gym, you can kind of mess around with that so you can work out the hip flexors. Another one you can do is you can kind of sit down on the ground, legs straight out. You're sitting straight up, and you can kind of think of pinching the hip flexors in one leg and kind of letting it go high, letting it go low. And then obviously doing the quads. And how do you do the quads without really compromising them with a deep squat? Well, you could either do, what I did for a while was doing some sled work or pushing and pulling a sled, which is very low impact on the knees and feels pretty good at like building some strength in the quads. Or you can kind of do some half squats or one-legged like squats in a more limited range of motion. Also did a lot of like step downs where you're really just stepping down like a couple 6 inches and then coming right back up. And the main thing you want to focus on is the descent. And by slowly doing this and building up, all the muscles around your legs are going to be a little bit stronger without having to really compromise your knee. And the last step I want to get into is the high range of motion exercises. So while I was saying avoid deep squats and stuff like that, once you start to feel more strength in your muscles all around, you can progress these into your system. You can progress these into your workouts and building knee strength using these. The deep squats to start off might not be you putting like 135, 225, whatever amount of weight on the bar and squatting ass to grass and coming back up. It could be you just using your body weight, getting down and low as you can go, hopefully to the ground. Or it could be you pushing and using some kind of assistance where it's like a little bit less than your body weight. And eventually you work up to where it can be your body weight, then maybe it's the bar, then you put weight on the bar, and it keeps going up from there. And then split squats. The split squats are kind of another variation of a deep exercise you could do. I find them to be really nice because they allow you to kind of focus on doing one leg at a time and maybe kind of balancing out some specific muscle imbalances you might have in each leg. 'Cause I know because of my knee, when I was doing a lot of squatting, my left leg got a lot stronger than my right leg. And I didn't really notice it until my left leg felt a little more tension, especially my adductors, from stabilizing, because I think I was pushing off that leg way more than my right leg. So the left leg just had to do a lot more work in general. And now balancing them out, I don't really feel any tension in one more than the other, and they both feel really good doing deep squats. Sissy squats, basically a pretty difficult squat in general, because you kind of have to try and keep basically from your knees to your shoulders as straight as possible and squat as low as you can go and come back up, which puts your knees in the most stretched position they probably could be, and is almost entirely reliant on that. So sissy squats might be more of a final kind of goal where you're doing just one perfectly with no assistance. If you can do that, then that's probably a good indicator that your knees are bulletproof. And one you can maybe skip or ignore, but I think is probably important, probably where the most improvements can come from, is doing plyometrics, especially with a focus on landing. Because the main thing, or when I'm ever kind of assessing a client and I want to see if they have problems with their knees, one good way of doing it is if they're able, not all people are able to do a lot of jumping and plyometrics, especially as they get older, is seeing how they land, because that's where people will make the most compensations. They'll make the most intuitive kind of movements to land. So that can mean like their knees moving properly, they're moving their hips in a certain way, they're going up on their toes, they're doing all these weird things to land. And plyometrics could be where you see that. So this could be more as I'm going to do plyometrics and I'm going to focus on landing mechanics, so that's a more natural way for my legs to be in general, because if you can fix that, there's probably a lot of ways your knees will naturally move throughout life that will just be improved through that. Now, I kind of want to give you some expectations for what you should expect while going through this method. Is that one, it won't be instant. It'll take a while. You'll have to just kind of like do one, then the other, then the other. So maybe you can't really do any strength exercises with your lower body at all because it hurts your knees too much. Well, you just try and foam roll and stretch it if you can. And sometimes you probably won't be able to stretch your knees or your quads too much because just the bending of it may cause pain in your knee. So you might have to just stretch everything else that's not your knee, or not your quad rather, and work your way up to doing that. And this could take a while. Like I know for me, I was able to kind of do some strength stuff, but it was basically almost avoiding any knee bending almost at all. So I was doing a lot of like hip abduction, straight leg calf raises. Doing hamstring work wasn't too bad. That was basically no impact on my knee at all. And then similar with the tibialis and hip flexor. And then once you feel like you're able to have good mobility in the muscles and joints around your knee, you could maybe then move to doing some strengthening of those muscles for maybe a month, maybe two, and while also doing the mobility stuff. So keep foam rolling, keep stretching, maybe do it less. Maybe before you're doing it 4 or 5 days a week. Maybe now you're just doing it 2 or 3 times a week when you go to strengthen the lower body. And then the very end is when you feel like you can feel more comfortable in your day-to-day with your knee and it doesn't hurt as much, then maybe you can start doing the deep squats, the sissy squats, the split squats, the deep split squats, and doing some plyometrics. And then the thing is also, it may spike up every now and then, because I know for me, it basically doesn't really affect my day-to-day too much, but every once in a while, especially if I slip a little bit or if I'm being a little lazy with it, it'll spike up and I'll be hurt for like a day or two, then I'll come down. So if this ever happens where it's like, you're fine, and then boom, out of nowhere, it's like instant pain. You're back to where you were like a couple months ago and you're freaking out. You're like, oh my God, my knees are destroyed again. Nothing's going to work. Just chill out, give it a few days, just get back into that routine and just let it play itself out. And then last thing, consistency is key. Nothing works just doing it 1 or 2 times. Life and keeping a healthy life is all about the habits you do every day, every week, every month, every year. So if you just do this for a few months just to try and fix it and then forget about it, you'll just end up bringing on the old habits that brought the knee pain in the first place. So yeah, just to kind of give a little recap, you want to be focusing on giving your knee more mobility, strengthening all the muscles around your knee because it's regional interdependence, and then once your knees are in a better spot, you want to be able to make them stronger in a greater range of motion, or the greatest range of motion you could possibly give them. And when you tie all those things together and do them consistently, you'll be able to bulletproof your knees and feel more comfortable and confident going throughout your day. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. See you in the next one.